Welcome back, everybody. It's 4th of July weekend, and this next video is basically a Bobtach or the quick attach plate repair. Happens a lot to these machines when the pins wear out. Either the pins wear or the Bobtach wears. But interesting way I'm going to try to fix my issue here on this S130 Bobcat. And it's not the only way to do this. There's several options, some a lot more expensive than others. This is an in-shop type repair where I don't have to go to a machine shop or a welding shop to have it done. So hopefully this video helps you. Looks like it's time to put the new bushings in the Bobtach end. I'll show you what I discovered on this one. Hopefully you can see the whole thing. Actually, you can move it inside. I'm hoping that it is not like egged out, the actual Bobtach. I'm hoping they either ordered the wrong size bearing, or not bearing, wrong size bushing, or the bushing itself had been wobbling around in there and just wore out the outside and the inside. The outer edge looks fine, but then you come over to this side and take a look at this. This is what tells me something weird's going on with these bushings. These sleeves, look how that moves. I still got to weld something in there and pull it out like everybody else is doing. Just weld a bolt in there, it'll come out. But before I do that, I want to grind this flat. This is a mess, this edge here. I don't know if somebody tried to chisel it out or what, but it looks like this sleeve here, looks like somebody had tried to weld that in there. So I'm going to grind that flat, try to make it look like the other side first. Alright, that's much better. I left the edge for the seal. I may try to sand. There's a couple ridges that either somebody was beating on it with a cold chisel, but for the most part the seal will stick on there. I took off all the weld, grinding it off, but you can see this whole thing just moves around in there. Now, what most people do, get these bushings out of here. I took the old bolt that used to go into this, and I ground down the outer rim of it so it fits pretty snugly in there. It slides right in. I'm going to weld it about in that position, and then I'm going to pull this bearing out that way. Hopefully that's in focus so you can see. Easiest way to get it out, even though these are loose, I've started to chisel on the other side and they're not coming out. So easiest way. All right, let's give that a try. Hopefully the weld's stuck. Not bad. I'll measure it with the new sleeve. I'm going to go ahead and do the other side. I won't bore you with that one. And we'll measure, see what we come up with. I was able to pull out the sleeve, the bushing, and it's kind of a worst case situation. I thought maybe they ordered the wrong sleeve. That's not the case at all. Couple things. Either this has been kind of worn out, the Bobtach has been worn out, which I find hard to believe because usually it gets egg shaped or ovaled. This is almost perfectly round as far as I can measure. Now I understand why they tried to weld the bushing in there. So I have some choices here. I could cut out, they sell this as an aftermarket or through Bobcat. You can buy a whole new, you have to torch it out, cut it, slide the new one in, align it. You could have possibly sleeves made to fit this opening. You could buy a new Bobtach, which is probably about $1,500 for an aftermarket, or you can find a used one. So the options are out there. I've actually seen somebody take the sleeves, the bushings, and put welds on them and then turn them in a lathe, just so it'll hold tight in there. I'm going to try something that I haven't seen anybody try yet online, and I think this is a good candidate because the hole seems pretty round. I'm going to try something that kind of resembles what they do when they sleeve an engine. So I'm sure some of you know, when you sleeve an engine, you slide in a metal sleeve and it's honed or whatever, bored to something new. So what I'm going to try is use something called a shim stock, and they come in packs of 3s. You can get them more on Amazon, and they're steel of all different sizes, to try to maybe do a circle to sleeve the inside of that Bobtach. Now, some of you might say, well, why don't you just use like JB Weld and fit it in there, epoxy the new bushing in there? And my feeling is JB Weld, I think the PSI strength, tensile strength is like 4,000 PSI, 5,000 PSI. If you can get actual metal in there, even if it has a thin layer of Loctite or JB Weld on it to hold it in place, I think that's a much better situation to build layers of metal. Now, it may only take one layer. I have some pretty thick pieces here, but they're kind of hard to shape it into a perfect circle. So I think what I'm going to do is take one that is a 0.2 millimeter, which is this one. I'm going to cut it to length, and how I figured out the length it would take to go around the circumference of the inside the Bobtach. It's just diameter times pi equals the length. So I have a diameter, that hole is about 1.80 inches. Times that by 3.14159, which is pi, and you come out with about 5.65 inches. These come in 6-inch pieces, so I'm lucky I could get the whole circumference done in one piece. The area that the bushing rides on is about 1 inch. Here's an old bushing, and as you can see, the surface, not the chamfered edges, but the surface it rides on is almost exactly 1 inch. So I'm not piecing it in there, I'm just putting a cylinder in there. See if I can get it into a fairly decent circle. Get this thing bent. I'm going to test fit it in the opening. Yeah, this one, as you can see, this is the old one. Look at the grooves and the wobble that took place in there. Wow. Wow, that's pretty tight already. I mean, I haven't secured it in there. It needs to be pushed back, and I am going to JB weld it in place and see how that fits later. But that's not a bad fit. That's adding the 0.2 millimeters. That's kind of the measurement I had when I was messing around with it. So I'm going to go ahead and adhere that into place on this side. I'll check the other side. Okay, now the first liner is in. I use the old bearing just to make sure, the old bearing's pretty round, believe it or not, on the outside, just to make sure that sleeve stays round. And it is in there with some JB Weld. And I'm going to let that set for a while. I may put, since this is a snug fit with the old bearing, I have the new bearings in the freezer, which will shrink them. When I take them out of the freezer, I'm going to see how tight they are to the existing liner. I may add another very, very thin piece of metal in there, which is much easier to get rounded. So that'll work well, but this is a good base to start from. It's been 24 hours. I took the old bushings out. They were installed mainly to help keep this thing rounded and not to move, but check out the lining. It worked really well. That's the biggest lining, the thickest lining I had with these shim stocks. And I mean, I'm sure I'll get some comments or people that don't believe this stuff. It's a stainless steel thin piece of metal. Now, when I did a crank bearing, rear bearing seal on my Ford F-150, had about 450,000 miles on it. The repair that is recommended is a simple stainless steel sleeve that slides over the crank, fits there tightly, and then the crank seal can ride on that stainless steel sleeve. It's almost like a paper thin stainless steel sleeve. So this stuff is strong. It's a lot stronger than the epoxy. If I were to fill that whole thing up with epoxy and try to round it. So anyway, I'm going to go over and see how the new bearings fit. Why do I call them bearings? The new bushings fit. They've been in the freezer overnight. Let's see this side. This side, same thing. It's snug and it'll bang in there and it would probably work, but I think I'm going to go with the thinnest. I'm going to do this side first. I think I'm going to go with the thinnest sleeve I have, thinnest shim I have, and which would be this one here. There's 3 in a pack, and basically that's the measurements I've come up with. And I think maybe put some Loctite on this to hold it in place. I do not want to JB Weld this into place. On each one of these layers of shims I'm putting in here, which is only one so far, there's a thin, even layer of JB Weld to hold that sleeve in place. I have to use some epoxy to hold it there, but it's such a thin layer, I don't think it'll ever affect the longevity of these bushings moving around in there. I would rather have a couple layers of stainless steel and some thin layers of JB Weld than to try to do something else with a thick 16th inch, 32nd inch layer of just epoxy. So I'll see what happens. I'll add another sleeve to this side. I have a little bit of thread locker on that. I don't want it moving around. I'm going to attempt to knock it in there while it's cold. It's already a pretty tight fit. Gotta work quickly. Very close. So I pretty much wrapped up everything. Let me show you these cup. I got the sleeve in there really well. Both sides are very tight. I think they're hold, they won't wobble. I got the new taper pin sitting there ready to go. The other thing is a seal. I see some videos online where they forget to put the seal on, or they just decide not to. Since my cup here was a little distorted, the outer ring, I put a little bit of RTV sealant on it, let it sit overnight. That way it's less likely to pop off of there. Anyway, I'm gonna put this Bobtach on. These seal protectors go on. Kind of helps keep things, water and stuff from going in there. I also see some of these are not put on. They're left in the trash pile. So I'm gonna try to do it the right way. That wraps up this Bobtach pin replacement video. Very happy how it turned out. There's like zero play in here now. Got everything greased. You have the grease fitting back here at the bottom that fills the tapered pins. Don't forget to grease your Bobtach lever arm. That grease fitting's down here. Works well. I'm going to go ahead and finish painting this bucket and wrap this project up. So thanks for watching. If you like this video and more like it, then please subscribe to my channel.